The suitcase appeared in the doorway first, blocking the light, scraping the old marble threshold with a sound that felt permanent. Then the woman followed it in, one hand on her swollen belly, the other gripping the doorframe as if the house itself might refuse her weight. The smell of outside, diesel, dust, unfamiliar soap, spilled into the living room and settled there, unwanted, lingering. From the kitchen, Mira stood frozen with a wet plate in her hands, water dripping steadily onto the floor, each drop loud enough to feel like an accusation. Her husband did not look at her right away. He closed the door carefully, almost tenderly, as though quietness could soften what he was doing. His shoulders were rounded, his back unfamiliar, the same man but rearranged into someone else. When he finally turned, his eyes flicked over Mira's face like a stranger reading a room for exits. He opened his mouth, closed it again. The silence grew teeth. "I'll explain," he said, eventually, as if explanation were a currency that still had value here. Mira's mind did not move forward. It retreated. It folded inward, finding older, safer moments to hide in. The day they painted this living room together, arguing over white shades. The first crack in the ceiling they never fixed. The plant in the corner she kept alive out of stubbornness more than love. Her hands began to shake, so she set the plate down, carefully, as if it were fragile, as if everything were not already broken. The pregnant woman lowered herself onto the edge of the sofa with a small sound, a breath escaping that held both relief and shame. She did not look at Mira. She stared at her own feet, swollen, pale against the dark rug. Her hair was pulled back too tightly, as though neatness might protect her. Mira noticed these things with the same distant attention she might give to weather. "This is temporary," her husband said. He gestured vaguely, not quite pointing at the woman, not quite at the house. "She has nowhere else." Temporary. The word echoed, thin and useless. Mira wondered how many nights, how many secrets, how many touches had already been temporary. She felt her mother before she heard her. A presence moving in the back bedroom, the soft shuffle of slippers, the quiet authority of someone who had outlived too many disasters to be surprised by this one. Her mother appeared in the hallway, taking in the scene with a stillness that was not calm but controlled. Her eyes rested on Mira first, reading her daughter's face the way she had since childhood, noticing the slight tilt of her chin that meant endurance, the trembling that meant pain swallowed whole. Then her mother looked at the man. The look did not burn. It did not accuse. It settled, heavy and patient, like soil waiting to cover something. "What is this?" her mother asked, not raising her voice, not lowering it either. He straightened instinctively, the way men do before elders, before judges, before truths they cannot charm. He spoke quickly, words tumbling out with rehearsed care, as if he had practiced this speech alone. "Mistakes. Circumstances. Responsibility. No abandonment. No cruelty intended. The child was innocent. The woman had no family. This was the right thing." Mira listened, detached. She felt her chest tightening, breath becoming shallow, but she did not cry. Crying felt like a luxury for people who expected comfort afterward. Her mother waited until he finished. Then she nodded once, slowly. "You are tired," she said. "All of you. Sit. Eat something." The normality of it struck Mira harder than shouting would have. Plates were fetched. Tea was poured. The pregnant woman accepted a cup with shaking hands, murmuring thanks. Her husband avoided Mira's eyes, focused instead on the steam rising from his tea, as if it contained instructions. That night, Mira lay awake in the bedroom that no longer felt like hers. Her husband slept beside her, turned away, a careful distance between them that mocked intimacy. Through the thin wall, she could hear the pregnant woman shifting on the sofa, the soft groan of discomfort, the creak of springs. Every sound felt invasive, intimate in a way she had not consented to. Her mother did not sleep. Mira knew this the way children know when their parents are awake in the dark. There was a rhythm to her mother's wakefulness, a quiet vigilance shaped by years of protecting others at the cost of herself. In the small hours, Mira finally slipped out of bed. She stood in the doorway of the living room, watching the stranger sleep curled awkwardly, one arm wrapped around her belly as if bracing herself against the world. For a moment, something like pity flickered in Mira's chest. It startled her. She hated it immediately. She retreated to the kitchen, sitting at the table where she had once planned birthdays, holidays, futures. Her mother was already there, hands folded around a cup of cold tea, eyes open, alert. "I don't know how to live in this," Mira whispered. Saying it aloud made it real in a way she had been avoiding. Her mother reached across the table and covered Mira's hand. Her skin was warm, steady. "You will not live in it forever," she said. "Not a promise. A statement." Mira searched her face, looking for anger, for fury on her behalf. Instead she found resolve. A deep, quiet certainty that frightened her more than rage would have. Her mother had seen this kind of harm before, in different costumes, different houses. She knew its shape. She knew where it led. Outside, dawn began to thin the darkness, light creeping in through the curtains, revealing everything that had not been cleaned away. Mira felt something settle in her chest then, not acceptance, not forgiveness, but an understanding that the life she had known had already ended. What came next would not be loud. It would not be dramatic. It would be slow, deliberate, unavoidable. Her mother squeezed her hand once, a signal, a language older than words. Mira squeezed back, breathing through the ache, unaware yet of the cost that would be demanded, only knowing that nothing placed so carelessly into her home would remain untouched. Her mother woke before the birds, before the city found its voice. The house was quiet in that particular way that only exists when something has gone wrong and everyone inside it is pretending otherwise. She sat at the small dining table with a ledger she had kept for years, pages filled with careful handwriting, grocery costs, medicine, school fees long since crossed out. She turned to a fresh page and wrote the date. Her pen did not shake. She listened. The soft, uneven breathing from the sofa. Her son-in-law's heavier breath from the bedroom. Mira's too light stillness, the kind that meant her daughter was awake and not moving, afraid that movement itself would invite pain. Her mother closed her eyes briefly, allowing herself a single, silent moment of grief. It passed. Grief was something you scheduled when others depended on you. When the house began to stir, she was already dressed, hair neatly pinned, her face composed into its familiar calm. She set water to boil. She sliced fruit with deliberate care. She placed plates on the table as though nothing extraordinary had occurred. Routine was a kind of armor. She had learned that young. The pregnant woman emerged first, hesitant, apologetic even in her posture. She whispered good morning, eyes darting. Her mother answered kindly, offered a chair, poured tea. The kindness was genuine. It confused the woman, who had likely rehearsed hostility in her mind, prepared herself to endure it. Instead, she found herself being fed. Her son-in-law entered last. He looked tired already, as though consequences were a physical weight pressing down on him. He avoided her gaze, addressing his comments to the table, to the air. He thanked her for breakfast. He spoke of work. He tried to sound normal. She watched him eat. Watched the way his hand reached automatically for sugar, the habit of years. She remembered teaching him that habit, sliding the bowl toward him when he first came into this house as a young man, nervous, eager to please. He had called her mother within weeks. The memory sat quietly between them now, heavy but not sharp. After breakfast, she asked him to sit with her. Just him. Her voice was gentle. There was no room to refuse. They sat at the table where she had once helped him fill out job applications, where she had shown him how to sign his name with confidence. He shifted in his chair, sensing the seriousness beneath her calm. "You have done something," she said, "that has changed this house." He opened his mouth to defend himself. She raised a hand. Not to silence him, but to slow him. He stopped. "This house," she continued, "was built on certain understandings. Care, honesty, respect. You broke those. Now you will help repair what you can." Her words were not loud. They were not cruel. They were precise. She outlined the practicalities. He would move to the smaller room at the back. Mira needed space. The living room was not a permanent solution. The woman would stay for now, but arrangements would be made. Medical appointments would be handled properly. Expenses would be recorded. Nothing hidden. Nothing assumed. "And," she added, meeting his eyes fully now, "you will not touch my daughter. Not until she asks. Not until she believes she can." The shame on his face was real. It did not redeem him. It simply existed. Over the following days, the house shifted around these new rules. Furniture moved. Doors closed that had always been open. Conversations shortened. Mira watched it all from a distance, grateful and aching at once. Her mother's steadiness was a relief she leaned on without knowing how long it could hold. The pregnant woman began to cry quietly in the afternoons, the sound muffled, controlled. Her mother would sit with her sometimes, listening without prying. She did not offer absolution. She offered presence. The woman spoke of fear, of being unwanted everywhere, of hoping, foolishly, that a home might grow around her child. Her mother listened, thinking of Mira as a child, how she had once clung to her leg on the first day of school, terrified of being left. Life repeated itself in cruel patterns. Someone always paid. In the evenings, her mother went through documents. Marriage papers. Property records. Accounts. She did not hide this work. She did it at the table, under the same light that once illuminated family meals. Her son-in-law noticed. Anxiety crept into his movements. "What are you doing?" he asked one night, unable to stop himself. "Understanding," she replied. "What exists? What does not?" Mira sat nearby, watching her mother's pen move steadily. Something inside her loosened. Not healed. Loosened enough to breathe. One night, her mother knocked softly on Mira's door. She sat on the edge of the bed, just as she had when Mira was sick as a child. She did not offer advice. She did not urge forgiveness. "You are allowed to be angry," she said. "You are allowed to leave. You are allowed to stay. None of these choices make you small." Mira turned her face into the pillow, the first tears finally breaking through. Her mother rested a hand on her back, counting breaths, grounding them both. Later, alone in the kitchen, her mother stared out the window at the dark street. She felt the weight of what she was doing, the slow construction of consequences that would not announce themselves dramatically. This was not revenge. It was responsibility, enforced gently but relentlessly. She knew the cost would come. It always did. People rarely thanked you for making them face themselves. She accepted that. What mattered was that Mira would not be crushed quietly in a house that pretended nothing had changed. In the silence before sleep, her mother allowed herself one thought she would never voice. That some mistakes, once carried into a home, rewrote every future inside it. And that love, when it truly protected, often looked like something else entirely. Mira began to notice the house again, not as a shelter but as a witness. The walls held sound differently now. Footsteps echoed longer. Doors closed with care, as though afraid of making claims. She moved through rooms slowly, relearning distances. The bedroom felt borrowed. The kitchen felt guarded. Even the window where she once stood every morning with her tea seemed to look back at her, asking what she planned to do with the life still standing there. Her husband existed at the edge of her days, a shadow she refused to acknowledge. She registered him the way one notices a stain on the floor without bending down to scrub it. He spoke to her rarely, and when he did, his voice carried a pleading restraint, as if emotion itself were a negotiation. She did not respond. Silence had become her only clean language. The pregnant woman remained mostly in the living room, her presence reshaping the space through sheer vulnerability. Mira felt her without seeing her. A cough. A chair moving. The muted hum of a phone call whispered into the night. Mira's anger did not sharpen. It dulled, heavy and exhausting, the kind that made lifting one's own heart feel like labor. Her mother watched all of this without comment. She had entered a phase of careful action, the kind that looked invisible from the outside. She met with people quietly. A lawyer who owed her a favor from years ago. A bank clerk she had once helped through a difficult season. Small debts returned gently, without announcement. Papers moved from one folder to another. Names were written, crossed out, rewritten. Ownership clarified. Mira noticed envelopes appearing on the dining table, always stacked neatly, never hidden. She did not ask. She trusted her mother in the way only a child who has survived something can trust the person who stayed standing. One afternoon, her mother asked Mira to walk with her. They went slowly, past familiar streets, past shops where Mira had once laughed easily. The world continued, indifferent and intact. You do not owe anyone your endurance, her mother said, breaking a long silence. Including me. Mira nodded. The words settled somewhere deep, loosening a knot she had been tying tighter every day. She realized she had been waiting for permission to imagine herself outside this house. The idea terrified her. It also breathed. That evening, her husband asked to speak with her. Her mother was present, seated nearby, not intervening, simply existing as gravity. I am trying, he said. I am doing what your mother asked. I am paying. I am staying out of your way. Doesn't that count? Mira looked at him then, really looked. His face was thinner. His certainty gone. She felt nothing resembling triumph. You are doing what is required, she said quietly. Not what is right. He flinched as if struck. Her mother did not move. Days passed. The pregnant woman's condition worsened slightly. Appointments increased. Bills accumulated, each recorded carefully in the ledger. Mira watched her husband sign checks with hands that trembled more each time. The cost was no longer abstract. It was dated. Itemized. One night, Mira heard raised voices from the living room. She paused, listening. The pregnant woman was crying openly now, the sound raw, uncontained. Her husband's voice followed, strained, defensive. This was supposed to be easier, he said. You said you understood. Her mother's voice entered last, calm and firm, slicing through the noise without raising volume. There is nothing easy about being honest late, she said. Sit down. Silence followed. The kind that presses against the ears. The next morning, Mira found her husband at the table staring at a document. His name was printed there, along with others. He looked up, eyes glassy. She's separating the finances, he said, disbelief creeping in. She says it's to protect you. It is, Mira replied. She poured herself tea. Her hands were steady. He laughed weakly. You're all turning me into something horrible. Her mother, standing in the doorway, spoke without stepping closer. You arrived that way, she said. We are simply refusing to lie about it. The pregnant woman moved out 2 weeks later. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Her mother had found a small apartment, arranged support, insured medical care. The woman left with quiet gratitude, eyes lingering on Mira with something like apology. Mira accepted it without comment. Forgiveness felt premature. Distance was enough. The house felt larger afterward. Emptier. The silence changed shape again, no longer crowded, but vast. Her husband remained, smaller now, contained to corners. He slept in the back room. He ate quietly. He began to understand that regret was not an emotion but a condition. It did not absolve. It endured. Mira stood one evening in the living room, noticing the clean lines, the absence. She felt grief rise unexpectedly, not for what had been lost, but for what she had almost accepted. Her mother joined her, standing side by side. They did not touch. This is not the end, her mother said. But it is the point where you stop being dragged. Mira nodded. Outside, the light faded, leaving the room in soft shadow. She realized then that the regret her husband carried was not the punishment. Watching her step out of the life he had broken, with quiet dignity, would be. Mira packed slowly, not because there was much to take, but because each object asked to be handled like a memory that could bruise if dropped. Clothes folded without urgency. Books touched, then left behind. The plant in the corner went with her, roots tangled but alive. She moved as someone does when she has already mourned and is now performing the rituals that follow. Her husband watched from the doorway once, then stopped. He had learned that witnessing did not mean participating. The house no longer responded to him. It obeyed different gravity now. Her mother supervised nothing. She sat at the table, hands resting on the ledger that had quietly rewritten the rules of this home. Her breathing was even, but inside her chest something old and tired ached. Letting a child leave was its own grief, even when it was necessary. Especially then. On the morning Mira was to go, the light came in clean and pale. No rain. No drama. Just an ordinary day doing an extraordinary thing. Her husband cleared his throat as Mira lifted her bag. I never meant to destroy you, he said. The words were careful, almost practiced, as if intention still mattered. Mira paused. She turned, looked at him fully, without heat. "I know," she said. "That's why it hurts the way it does." There was nothing else to say. No summary of years. No inventory of harm. She had learned that some truths did not need to be explained to be permanent. Her mother walked her to the door. They stood there a moment longer than necessary, as if time might bend politely if asked. It did not. "You don't owe me staying," her mother said softly. "I know," Mira replied. "But I owe myself leaving." Her mother nodded. She pressed her forehead briefly to Mira's, a gesture from another life, another version of them both. Then she stepped back. The door closed with a sound that was final but not loud. The apartment Mira moved into was small. The walls were thin. The windows looked out onto nothing remarkable. It was perfect. The quiet there was her own. At night, she slept without listening for footsteps that no longer mattered. She cried sometimes, unexpectedly, while washing dishes or folding laundry, grief arriving late, polite enough to wait until safety existed. Her mother visited once a week. They drank tea. They spoke of ordinary things. Weather. Neighbors. Recipes. Slowly, they spoke of other things too. Anger. Relief. Guilt that arrived without invitation. "I wonder sometimes if I went too far," her mother said once, staring into her cup. Mira shook her head gently. "You went exactly as far as you needed to." Back in the old house, the rooms settled into a quieter decay. Her husband moved through them carefully, as though apologizing to furniture. The ledger remained on the table. The rules remained enforced. His life narrowed into consequences he could not argue with. He came home one evening to find her mother sitting alone, the house stripped of Mira's presence in a way that no rearrangement could disguise. "She's not coming back, is she?" he said. Her mother did not answer immediately. She looked at him, really looked, seeing not a villain but a man who had mistaken desire for entitlement and paid accordingly. "No," she said. "She's becoming." Something in him broke then. Not loudly. Something private. He sat down heavily, head in his hands. She did not comfort him. She did not need to. Pain had finally found its correct owner. Months passed. Mira grew into her life quietly. She changed her hair. She laughed once, surprised by the sound. She learned the geography of her own solitude and found it survivable. Her mother aged visibly in that time, lines deepening, energy thinning. But there was peace in her movements now. The kind that comes from having stood where it mattered and not moved aside. One afternoon, Mira came to the old house to help her pack. They worked slowly, carefully. The house was being sold. Not in anger. Not in haste. Simply because it no longer served the people it once held. They stood in the empty living room at the end. The echo startled them both. "This place taught me something," Mira said. Her mother waited. "That love isn't proven by how much you endure," Mira finished, "but by what you refuse to normalize." Her mother smiled then, a small tired smile, full of years. "That's all I wanted you to learn." They locked the door behind them. The key turned once. Clean. Final. As they walked away, Mira felt something lift. Not forgiveness. Not forgetting. Something quieter. Ownership. Of her life. Of her breath. Of the future she would enter without apology. Behind them, regret remained, sealed inside walls that no longer belonged to anyone who would protect it.